Lavender is supposed to be the easy one. It is the plant from the dry, rocky hillsides of the Mediterranean, the one that grows wild in gravel and blazing sun with nobody watering it, nobody feeding it, nobody fussing over it at all. It is famous for thriving on neglect. So when yours goes brown, or floppy, or woody, or just quietly dies in the middle of July, it feels personal. What did you do wrong? And here is the answer. And it is going to sound strange. You cared too much. Because here is what almost nobody tells you about lavender. Everything your gardening instincts tell you to do for a struggling plant, water it, feed it, enrich the soil, tuck it in with mulch, is the exact opposite of what this plant wants. Lavender does not want your help. It wants your restraint. And every July, thousands of people love their lavender straight into the grave, doing things that would rescue almost any other plant in the garden. There are 5 mistakes people make with lavender in July. And the third one is the one that actually kills it. Not slowly, not cosmetically. It kills the whole plant, roots and all. And here is the cruel part. You almost always do it while you are trying your hardest to save the plant. You see it struggling in the summer heat, you reach for the hose, and you finish it off. That is mistake number 3. And there is a specific, almost unfair reason it fools nearly everyone, which I will show you when we get there. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which 5 things to stop doing, why each one hurts a plant that most gardeners think is indestructible, and what actually keeps lavender alive and blooming for years. With the watering, the drainage, the spacing, all of it spelled right out. But first, you have to understand one thing about this plant, because it reframes all 5 mistakes at once. Lavender is not like the other plants in your garden. It wants the opposite of what they want. Let me show you. Here is the one idea that makes sense of all 5 mistakes. Lavender wants the opposite of what almost every other plant in your garden wants. So the instincts that make you a good gardener everywhere else are exactly the instincts that kill lavender. Think about where this plant is from. The Mediterranean. Dry, rocky hillsides. Poor, gritty, sun-baked soil that drains in seconds. Blistering sun all day. Very little rain and dry air that never sits heavy. Wind moving through it. That is home. That is what 4,000 years of evolution built this plant to expect. So look at what a well-meaning gardener does to it. They plant it in nice, rich garden soil. They water it faithfully. They feed it to help it along. They mulch it to keep the roots moist and cozy. And they tuck it into a full, lush border with plants crowded up close on every side. And every single one of those kindnesses is a small poisoning. Rich soil makes it floppy and stops it flowering. Water rots its roots. Feeding weakens it. Mulch holds moisture against a plant that needs to stay dry. And crowding chokes off the airflow it depends on. You did everything right, by every normal rule of gardening, and you slowly killed a plant that would have thrived if you had just left it alone in the worst corner of your yard. So hold this one idea through the whole video. With lavender, kindness is the enemy. Lean, dry, sunny, and spaced. That is the plant. Every mistake we are about to cover is really just a version of loving it too much. And do me a favor. Drop a comment and tell me what kind of lavender you have. English, French, Spanish, or a lavandin. And your state, because your climate, especially your humidity, changes everything. Now let's start with the kindness that does the most damage. Mistake number 1. Watering your lavender too much. And watering it on a schedule. This is the most common mistake there is with lavender, and it is the one that leads straight to the killer in mistake number 3, so pay close attention here. In the July heat, you look out at your lavender, the sun is beating down, everything else in the garden is gasping, and every instinct says, water it. So you do. Often. Maybe every day, along with the rest of the bed, and you are drowning it. Here is the biology. Lavender is built for drought. Its roots evolved on dry hillsides where rain came rarely, and they are adapted to grab water fast and then dry out completely between drinks. Those roots are not designed to sit in moisture. Keep the soil constantly damp, and the roots cannot breathe, and the plant begins to fail. Lavender genuinely would rather be too dry than too wet. Underwatering it, you can almost always fix. Overwatering it, very often you cannot. So here is the rule. Stop watering on a schedule and start watering by the soil. And the numbers surprise everyone. Established lavender in the ground, in most climates, needs almost no supplemental water at all once it is settled in. In the heat of summer, an established plant in a garden bed typically wants a deep drink only every 2 to 3 weeks, and in many places the rain handles even that. Potted lavender dries faster, so you check it. But even then, you only water when the soil is completely dry, at least 2 inches down. Push your finger in. Dry deep down, water it well. Any moisture at all, walk away. Newly planted lavender is the one exception. In its first season, while it is putting down roots, it does need more regular watering to establish. But even then, you let it dry between waterings. And after that first year, you back right off. And always water at the base, at the soil, never over the top of the plant. Wet foliage in the summer heat invites fungal disease, and we will come back to that. Here is the honest headline for this whole mistake. When in doubt, do not water. With almost everything else in your garden, hesitation costs you. With lavender, hesitation saves the plant. And that habit of overwatering does not just stress the plant, it sets up the exact conditions for the thing that kills it. But before we get there is a second kindness doing damage. Mistake number 2. Feeding it, enriching the soil, and mulching it. The 3 great kindnesses, and all 3, hurt this plant. Start with the soil, because it is the foundation of everything. When you plant lavender, the instinct is to dig in lots of lovely rich compost or manure to give it a good start, the way you would for a rose or a vegetable. Do not. Lavender flowers best and smells strongest in poor, lean soil. Rich, fertile soil does 2 bad things at once. It pushes the plant into soft, leafy, floppy growth at the expense of flowers, so you get a big, green, sprawling mess with hardly any blooms. And rich soil is usually moisture-retentive soil, which holds water against those roots that need to dry out. So the kinder you make the soil, the worse the plant does. Now the feeding, which is the same mistake in a bottle. Lavender does not need fertilizer at all. It is adapted to nutrient-poor ground, and it is genuinely one of those plants that performs best when you leave it hungry. Feed it, especially with a high nitrogen fertilizer, and you get exactly what nitrogen always gives you. Lush green leaves, weak floppy stems, and fewer flowers, on a plant that is now soft and far more vulnerable to disease. So put the fertilizer away. If your soil is genuinely awful, a little plain compost at planting is plenty, and after that, nothing. And the mulch. This one catches people who have learned, correctly, that mulch is good for most plants. Around lavender, a thick, moisture-holding mulch like bark or wood chips, especially piled up against the base of the plant, is actively dangerous. It traps moisture right against the crown and the roots, exactly where this plant cannot tolerate it, and it invites the rot we are about to talk about. So if you mulch lavender at all, do not use bark. Use a light-colored gravel, grit, or coarse sand, which reflects heat up into the plant, keeps the crown dry, and drains instantly. And keep even that pulled back a little from the stems. So the honest summary of mistake 2. Everything you would do to pamper a normal plant, rich soil, fertilizer, cozy mulch, is a slow poisoning here. Lavender is a plant you succeed with by withholding, not by giving. Now, mistakes 1 and 2, the overwatering and the pampering, both lead to the same place. And that place is mistake number 3, the one that actually kills the plant. Now, mistake number 3. This is the one in the title. This is the one that actually kills the plant. It is called root rot, and it is, by a wide margin, the #1 killer of lavender. Nothing else is close. And here is what makes it so cruel. You almost always cause it while you are trying to save the plant. Let me connect the dots from the first 2 mistakes, because they all lead here. Overwatering, rich moisture-holding soil, mulch packed against the crown, poor drainage. Every one of those does the same thing. It keeps the soil around the roots wet. And here is what wet soil does to a lavender. The roots need to breathe. They take in oxygen from the tiny air pockets in the soil. Keep that soil constantly soggy, and water fills all those air pockets, and the roots suffocate. And that airless, waterlogged soil is a paradise for a family of soil-borne water molds and fungi, Phytophthora chief among them, plus Pythium, Fusarium, Rhizoctonia. These attack the drowning roots and rot them, turning them from firm and pale to dark, soft, and mushy, with a foul, sour smell. And once the roots are gone, the crown rots, and the plant collapses. Root rot can take a plant down fast. Now here's the part that fools nearly everyone, and it is genuinely unfair. When a lavender's roots are rotting, they can no longer take up water. So the plant wilts. It droops. It looks exactly like a plant dying of thirst. But the soil is wet. So you have a plant wilting in moist soil, looking parched, and every instinct screams, "Water it." And you do, and you drive it further into the grave. The plant is wilting from drought while sitting in wet soil, and the more you water, the faster it dies. So here is the single most important test in this whole video, and it takes 10 seconds. Before you ever water a struggling lavender, check the soil. Push your finger down 2 or 3 inches. If it is genuinely dry down there, fine, it might actually be thirsty. But if that soil is moist or wet and the plant is wilting anyway, stop. Do not water and go further. Dig gently down at the base and look at the roots and smell the soil. Firm, pale roots and clean-smelling soil, you are okay. Dark, mushy roots and a sour, musty, rotten smell, that is root rot. And more water is the last thing on earth that plant needs. So here is the fix, and it is really about prevention, because prevention is far more reliable than cure. The whole answer is drainage. Lavender must have fast-draining soil, and if yours is heavy or clay, you fix it before you ever plant. Work in plenty of coarse sand, grit, or gravel. Plant on a slope or a raised mound, so water runs away from the crown. In a pot, use a gritty cactus-type mix, a container only slightly bigger than the roots, and multiple large drainage holes, and a terracotta pot if you can, because it breathes and lets moisture evaporate through the sides. Get the drainage right and this problem largely cannot happen. And the rescue, if you have caught it early. Stop watering completely and let the soil dry out. If it is potted, move it somewhere sheltered from rain for a couple of weeks while the root zone dries. In a bad case, lift the plant, cut away all the mushy, rotten roots, and replant it into fresh, dry, gritty soil or a better drained spot. But here is the honest truth, the part I will not soften. If the rot is advanced, if the crown is mushy and most of the roots are gone, that plant is very likely finished and no amount of care brings it back. Lavender recovers from mild, early root rot. It does not come back from a rotted crown. which is exactly why the whole game here is keeping it dry in the first place. Quick one, because underneath 4 of these 5 mistakes, there is one skill, and it is not really about lavender. It is knowing what a specific plant actually needs, instead of doing to it what you would do to everything else. That is the whole game. The gardener who kills lavender and the gardener who grows it for 15 years are doing opposite things, and the only difference is that one of them knew this plant was different. And there is one plant in your garden that punishes that mistake harder than any other. The hydrangea. Because there is not one hydrangea, there are 6 types, and each one wants something different, and the most common gardening complaint there is comes from treating them all the same. You tidy one up at the wrong moment, like a good gardener, and you will not kill it. It comes up next spring, green and lush and healthy, and gives you not one single flower, because you cut off the buds that were already there, waiting. Same lesson as today. Know the plant before you touch it. So I wrote the honest version of it down. It is called the Hydrangea Mastery Guide. All 6 types, told apart in 90 seconds, because everything starts with knowing which one you actually have. The prune by type calendar, so you never cut at the wrong moment again. The real reason the color changes, which is not the pH, whatever you have been told. And the 5 myths that waste an entire season. 29 pages, $27, instant PDF, 7-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the description at waltgreer.com. And it ends the way this channel always ends, with the part nobody prints. 4 of the 6 types cannot change color at all, no matter what you pour on them. Fertilizer will never fix a hydrangea that will not bloom, because a guide that only tells you what to do is only half a guide. Now, mistake number 4. And this one is about the shears. Mistake number 4. Cutting your lavender back into the old wood. And this one kills lavender a different way than the rot does, but it kills it just as dead. Here is the thing you have to understand about how a lavender is built. It is what botanists call a subshrub, and that means it is 2 plants stacked on top of each other. The top is soft, green growth, this year's leaves and flowers. The bottom, as the plant ages, turns to bare, hard brown wood. And here is the fact that decides everything. Lavender does not reliably come back from that old wood. Cut a stem down into the bare brown below all the green growth, and it will not resprout. You are left with a dead stub. Do it to the whole plant, and you have a dead plant. This is exactly where people go wrong, in 2 opposite directions. Some never prune at all, out of fear or neglect, and the plant gets leggier and woodier every year until it splits open in the middle and sprawls into a bare, ugly wreck, finished by about year 6. Others get decisive, look at that woody mess, and cut the whole thing back hard to renovate it, straight into the old wood, and they kill it in an afternoon. So here is the rule, and it is 5 words. Cut into the green, never the brown. When you prune, you cut only into the soft green growth, always leaving green leaves on every stem you touch. The standard is to take off about 1/3, cutting to a couple of inches above where the wood starts, never below it. Shape the plant into a rounded green mound, and when you are done, it should still be a living green cushion with no bare sticks poking out of your cuts. Timing briefly, since this is a July video. For most lavenders, you prune right after the flowers fade, which for English types is right about now. And the harvest is the prune. The same cut collects your flowers and shapes the plant. Just do not leave it so late that the tender new growth cannot harden before frost, which means no later than about 6 weeks before your first frost date. Cut into the green, and lavender lives for 15 or 20 years. Cut into the brown, and it is gone. One rule. Now, the fifth mistake, and it is about where the plant lives. Mistake number 5. Growing lavender where it cannot get enough sun and where it cannot get enough air. Two things, one root cause, and both of them matter more in July than any other month. Start with the sun, because it is not negotiable. Lavender needs full sun, a bare minimum of 6 hours of direct sunlight a day, and it is happiest with 8 or more. This is a plant from open, treeless, sun-blasted hillsides, and it will not thrive in shade, ever. A lavender in part shade grows leggy and weak, flowers poorly, and, critically, stays damp because there is not enough sun to dry the soil and the foliage. And a damp lavender, as you now know, is a lavender heading for rot. So if yours is struggling in a spot that gets shaded for part of the day, the sun may be your whole problem. Plant lavender in the brightest, hottest, most exposed spot you have. The place where nothing else wants to grow is often perfect. Now the airflow, which is the quiet killer people never think about. Lavender needs air moving through it. Good circulation keeps the foliage dry, and dry foliage does not get fungal disease. But when you crowd lavender, planting it tight in a full border with leafy plants pressed up against it on all sides, you trap still, humid air right around the plant. And that stagnant, humid pocket is exactly what fungal diseases like botrytis, the gray mold, need to take hold. So give lavender room. Space plants well apart, 2 to 3 feet, so air moves freely between them, and do not bury it in the middle of a dense planting. And here is the honest regional fork, because this is where you live decides your fate. If you garden somewhere hot and dry, the desert Southwest, inland California, a true Mediterranean climate, lavender is easy because the air itself keeps it dry. But if you garden somewhere hot and humid, the Southeast, the Gulf, anywhere the summer air sits heavy and wet, lavender is genuinely harder, and every one of these mistakes bites harder. In humid climates, spacing and airflow are not optional niceties, they are survival. Space plants at least 3 feet from anything else, choose more humidity-tolerant varieties, and accept that lavender will never be quite as effortless for you as it is for someone in Provence. So let me pull all 5 together. Before we finish, do one thing for me. Think of one person you know who says they just cannot grow lavender, who has killed a couple and given up, convinced they have the wrong touch. Send them this video, just the link, because they almost certainly do not have the wrong touch. They have too much of it. Now here is the whole thing in one idea. Lavender wants the opposite of what your instincts say. It is the one plant in your garden that punishes love and rewards neglect. So stop watering it, and water only by the soil when it is dry 2 inches down, which in summer is rarely. Stop enriching, feeding, and mulching it, because lean and hungry is where it flowers best. Above all, keep its feet dry, with fast-draining gritty soil and a raised spot, because wet feet and root rot are what actually kill it, and they kill it while you are standing there with the hose. Cut it into the green and never the brown, or you turn a pruning into an execution, and give it blazing sun and open air, plenty of space, because crowded and damp is where the disease starts. Lean, dry, sunny, and spaced. Do that, and this plant asks almost nothing of you for the next 15 or 20 years. It gives you that scent on a hot afternoon, the bees working it, an armful drying in the kitchen every July, and it does it all on neglect. You just have to be disciplined enough to give it nothing. That is the strangest, best trade in the whole garden. The plant that thrives when you leave it alone. So subscribe and stick around. We do this the honest way here in the Forgotten Knowledge Library. Real horticulture, exact amounts, and we tell you straight, including when the kindest thing you can do is walk away. It is free, and it always will be. Next time, another plant everyone tries too hard with, and the one thing it actually needs. Now go out to your lavender, and before you do a single thing to it, ask whether it needs less, not more. I will see you in the next one.